active here in Europe, so Basel II also applied. But interestingly, the vast majority of those applications were classified as compliance critical, not as a result of external regulations, but as a result of internal security policy. But in any event, they went live successfully after roughly 6 months, using 8 resources, a combination of internal project resources that had implemented this product in a different bank, as well as resources augmented through our consulting organization, as well as an external partner based both in London and in New York. So a very traditional project, went live in 6 months, scoped the requirements such that North America and Europe users were live, and then Asia was going to go and stream later on in the program. And then also identified 8 of those 85 resources that were fundamental for gaining control over in phase 1. What then happened was that the financial crisis kicked in. As I mentioned previously, this organization had to purchase another investment bank, and the implementation of Oracle Identity Manager actually served as a fundamental enabler for the M&A effort, because the bank that they brought on stream across Asia, Europe, and North America was a 40,000 employee organization that had another 45 to 50 compliance critical applications. So they were able to provide complete onboarding of all of the employees, as well as gradual onboarding of 8 of those 40 applications within a period of roughly a month, based on the foundational infrastructure that they'd already established through Oracle Identity Manager. And as a result of that, they've now received funding to extend the project across not only all the users of the combined bank, so now roughly 70,000 employees, but also across another 25 compliance critical application consisting of legacy global investment bank, as well as the new organization that they've acquired. But what I found particularly interesting is that they've extended the program to include an entitlement server implementation. So entitlements, or entitlements management, as I described on my previous slide, is basically the process of externalizing security functionality, in this case, authorization functionality from applications. We've been talking about this for a long time. I remember even back in the late 90s when web access management solutions basically crossed the chasm. There was a lot of talk about extension of that coarse-grained authorization capability that WAM solutions provide to fine-grained capability. But it's, of course, required new standards like hexacomal, as well as a new set of foundational capabilities to make this sort of vision a reality. The beauty of how this project was funded was the tactical project was to secure SharePoint from an entitlement standpoint. So they really wanted to gain control over SharePoint security. But the funding model for gaining approval purely for SharePoint security, frankly, was not tremendously compelling. So what the overall INAM program manager did was basically use the application development organizations across this bank, which consists of roughly 1,000 application developers, to run a series of internal sales presentations across the business around how all net new application projects should be built on top of an entitlement server, rather than have security coded within each application as is normally traditional. So in summary, not to exceed my time, using internal stakeholders in a very interesting and differentiated manner, they've been able to obtain funding for this entitlement server project based primarily on the reduction of application development costs that would arise throughout the next financial year across all the new applications that they deliver. But actually, the specific tactical project that is uppermost in the mind of the risk management and the security function is the provision of entitlement services to Microsoft SharePoint 2007. I won't run through the second example in too much detail due to lack of time, but again, another very comparable war story. A retirements, insurance, and pension services firm, early adopter of directory services. All of the statistics associated with this organization is shown on the slide. But again, a lot of comparable stories to be shared. Commenced implementation before the crisis, implemented OIM, or Oracle Identity Manager, for internal employee lifecycle management, Access Manager for runtime access control across their corporate intranet, across the 3 extranets by which they provide value to the various constituencies. So pensioners, retirees, and folks just accessing information over the web prior to registration for services from this organization. And all of that happened effectively prior to the crisis. Post the crisis, they've actually seen significant reduction in their overall membership levels. They have 15,000 members across the United States and Canada. That number's dropped significantly. The IT organization has been reduced tremendously as a result of the crisis. In fact, the gentleman that I interviewed himself has had his own role come under significant threat as a result of the crisis. And yet, in this context, they've been able to receive funding for extension of the program beyond just provisioning and access control to also include virtual directory. And here again, there was a key trigger that enabled that, which is a syndication project that they're in the process of implementing that would allow them to be able to provide health insurance services packaged and ultimately owned by a different organization, white labeled to their end members, which of course requires a tremendous amount of back-end data integration. And in this case, by these partner organizations providing access to their data stores without any kind of privacy concerns around replication of that data within this organization's own internal identity stores, they've been able to reduce the overall cost of providing these syndication services. In this case, also using federation services from another vendor as opposed to Oracle, another vendor that the company through whom their white labeling services already uses. So a combination of virtualization and federation on top of an existing access control set of services is going to enable business expansion through syndication, joint ventures, and ultimately merger and acquisition. So hopefully these stories at least resonate with some of you as you're thinking about how you fund new projects in this area or expand an existing program in this area in spite of the challenges that we're all grappling with in terms of seeking new funding. So to conclude, we really believe that there is increasing evidence that tactical projects can be delivered extremely rapidly and in some cases with minimal headcount and yet return measurable value to the business. As I talk about in my third point, this is not yet at the heart of a traditional I&AM program. I still believe that I&AM programs are foundationally infrastructure services that should be capitalized in our balance sheet such that they can return value over time. That's just a hard fact. But there are ways in which you can tactically start with the right projects that align with your hurdle rates while we're working through this financial crisis. And lastly, I think it's exciting that the breadth of identity services available to all of us, be they access control services, identity administration services, identity storage and virtualization services, etc., each have a means of returning absolutely measurable value to either your top or bottom line. So it provides you with, frankly, wonderful choice in terms of determining where to start or how best to continue to extend your program in the face of the prevalent economic context. I hope this information has been useful. Thank you for your time. And I don't know if we have any time for questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm sorry. Actually, we are out of time because we have a very strict schedule to adhere to. But thank you very much for your very upbeat assessment, and especially for the tips and tricks of funding in the crisis, which I found very helpful. But maybe just to strike a brighter note here, in today's Herald Tribune, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Mr. Bernanke, said that the U.S. economy appeared to be stabilizing on many fronts and that a recovery was likely to begin this year. So maybe tightening your belt is okay, but maybe we can let it out a couple of notches sometime this year. Thank you very much.